Good morning, Angie, for you. Let's get right into Act 2, Scene 1. It's a much shorter scene. There's only 2 scenes to it. Polonius dispatches his servant Rinaldo to Paris to deliver some money and also to gather information about Laertes' behavior. Ophelia enters upset and frightened and tells Polonius about a disturbing visit she has just had from Hamlet. Hamlet's clothing was in disarray. He did not speak to Ophelia, but he seemed to be painfully taking his leave of her. Polonius quickly concludes that the rejected love has caused Hamlet to go mad. He decides to inform the king immediately. So again, in this particular act, we're going to see more of the spying motif and Ophelia proving herself to be very much a puppet. No will of her own. Okay, so let's get right into Act 2, Scene 1.
Give him this money and these notes, Rinaldo.
I will, my lord.
You shall do marvellous wisely, good Rinaldo, before you visit him to make inquire of his behaviour.
My lord, I did intend it.
Very well said, very well said. Look you, sir. Inquire me first what danskers are in Paris, and how and who, for what means and where they keep, what company at what expense. And finding by this encompassment and drift of question that they do know my son, come you more nearer than your particular demands will touch it. Take you as 'twere some distant knowledge of him, as thus I know his father and his friends, and in part him. Do you mark this, Rinaldo?
Aye, very well, my lord.
And in part him. But you may say, not well. But if be he, I mean, he's very wild, addicted so-and-so, and there put on him what forgeries you please. Marry, none so rank as may dishonour him, take heed of that. But, sir, such wanton, wild, and usual slips as our companions noted and most known to youth and liberty.
All right, so here we have Polonius sticking his nose into Laertes' business, right? He says to Laertes, he gives him a bunch of advice, and instead of trusting him, he spies on him. He's going to send his servant, Rinaldo, to firstly just deliver him some money, and then quietly, kind of behind Laertes' back, go and spy on him. Ask, what Danes are in town, right? So inquire me first what danskers are in Paris, so what Danes are there. And once you figure out what Danes are there, ask them kind of nonchalantly about the behavior of his son. So he wants to definitely keep his thumb on his son. Doesn't trust him at all. So he says, once you find, all the Danish people in Paris, start to put him down a bit and see what their reaction is. Use it as an opportunity to get information out of them. Is my son behaving in Paris? And so he says, if you accuse him of some imagined faults, just be careful that you do not dishonor him on the whole. So Rinaldo is going to say, okay, I get it. So you want me to inquire if he's gambling, if he's drinking, if he's fighting or swearing or quarreling or spending time with women of ill repute. And Polonius says, yep, that's the kind of stuff I want you to find out. Let's keep going.
Gaming, my lord?
Aye, or drinking, fencing, swearing, quarrelling, trapping, you may go so far.
My lord, that would dishonour him.
Braith knows you may season it in the charge. You mustn't put another scandal on him, that he is open to incontinence, eh? That's not my meaning. But breathe his faults so quaintly that they may seem the taints of liberty, the flesh and outbreak of a fiery mind, a savageness in unreclaimed blood of general assault.
Okay, so Polonius says here, whatever you do, just don't dishonor him. And Rinaldo's like, if I say those things, it will dishonor him. And Polonius says, no, just do it really, really casually, so nobody really questions it. Just present it like it's just the normal mistakes that a young man might make throughout their life. General assault. The fault of having too much freedom. That's not my meaning. Don't dishonor him, but just breathe his faults so quaintly that they may seem the taints of liberty, meaning the fault of having too much freedom. Very typical of young people.
My good lord.
Wherefore should you do this?
Aye, my lord, I would know that.
Marry, sir, here's my drift. And I believe it is a fetch of warrant. You laying these slight sullies on my son, as per a thing a little soiled in the working, mark you, your party in converse, him you would sound, having ever seen in the predominant crimes the youth you breathe of guilty, be assured he closes with you in this consequence. Good sir, or so, or friend, or gentleman, according to the phrase in the edition of Man and Country.
Very good, my lord.
And then, sir, does he this? He does. What was I about to say? By the mess, I was about to say something. Where did I leave?
At closes in the consequence, at friend or so, and gentleman.
Closes in the consequence, I marry. He closes with you us. I know the gentleman. I saw him yesterday or t'other day, or then with such and such. And, as you say, there was he gaming, there or took in his rouse, there falling out at tennis, or perchance I saw him enter such a house of sale, videlis at a brothel, or so forth. See you now. Your bait of falsehood takes this carp of truth.
All right, so this last line here, your bait of falsehood takes this carp of truth. So by using lies, by inquiring about little lies, suggesting little lies, you will use that as bait to fish out the truth about my son. So he says, yeah, so just, ask kind of casually, I know Laertes a little bit. Like, so has he been gambling? Has he been passed out drunk at any bars? Has he been hanging out with women of ill repute at a brothel? So yeah, he said, it's okay to lie a little bit to get the truth. In other words here, we get some more character delineation about Polonius. His morals are questionable, right? He doesn't think anybody should be dishonoring his daughter, but then he goes to tell his servant Ronaldo, dishonor my son just a little bit. It's okay if I get what I want. So we call that kind of behavior Machiavellian. The end justifies the means. So you can do whatever you want as long as you get the end result that you want. All right.
And thus the way of wisdom and of reach with windlasses and with essays of bias by indirections find directions act.
So he goes on to say, it's wise to play these little games. It is. Truthful, open, and honest people don't need to play little games. He can just ask his son, right? So he says, and thus we of wisdom and reach with windlasses and with essays of bias. So the wise, I'm wise or I'm older than you. This is what we need to do to find out the truth.
Former lecturer's advice shall you, my son. You have me, have you not?
My lord, I have.
God by you, fare you well.
Good, my lord.
Observe his inclination in yourself.
I shall, my
And
lord.
let him ply his music.
Well, my lord.
Well.
All right, so in the end, he says, make sure that you end off on good terms with him. Don't give him any advice. Like, you're not there to give him advice. I just want you to gather information. And then at the very top, he says, by indirections, find directions out. In other words, by indirect means or methods, find out the truth.
My lord! My lord!
So now, Ophelia, what's the matter?
Alas, my lord, I have been so frightened.
With what in the name of heaven?
My lord, as I was sewing in my chamber, Lord Hamlet, with his doublet all unbraced, no hat upon his head, his stockings fouled, ungartered, and down-jivered to his ankle, pale as his shirt, his knees knocking each other, and with a look so piteous in purport, as if he had been loosed out of hell, to speak of horrors, he comes before me.
Okay, so Ophelia comes rushing in. My dear father, something really strange has just happened. Hamlet has just come to my chamber and was acting really, really, really crazy. Now let's read the annotation here off to the side. 81. Down jive to his ankle, fallen down to his ankle. In Elizabethan times, a man who wanted to show that he was in love would dress negligently. So to say, in other words, I'm so crazy in love with you, I can barely keep it together. Right? And the Elizabethans would at this moment recognize this to be a sign of love sickness. So Polonius here is going to jump to some conclusions about the reason why Hamlet is acting so crazily. He's going to think it's because he's in love with his daughter. and isn't getting anything in return. We call that unrequited love. So he's going to suggest that must be why Hamlet is acting so weird. Seems like a reasonable thing to assume.
For thy love.
My lord, I do not know, but truly I do fear it.
What said he?
He took me by the wrist and held me hard. Then goes he to the length of all his arm. And with his other hand thus o'er his brow, he falls to such perusal of my face as he would draw it. Long stayed he so. At last a little shaking of mine arm, and thrice his head thus waving up and down, he raised a sigh so piteous and profound as it did seem to shatter all his bulk and end his being. That done, he lets me go. And with his head over his shoulder turned, he seemed to find his way without his eyes. For out of doors he went without their help, and to the last bended their light on me.
Come, go with me. I will go seek the king. This is the very ecstasy of love, whose violent property foredoes itself and leads the will to desperate undertakings as oft as any passion under heaven that does afflict our natures. I'm sorry. What, have you given him any hard words of late?
No, my good lord. But as you did command, I did repel his letters and denied his access to me.
Okay, so Ophelia goes on to explain his behavior. Hamlet doesn't even say anything to her. He just kind of mimes it out and just like lots of sighing and staring at her. And as he leaves, she says, he lets me go, and with his head over his shoulder turned, so he's leaving, and he walks out the door, and she's like, I don't even know how he left. He couldn't see where he was going. He just would not let go of his stare of me. So with his head over his shoulders turned, he seemed to find his way out the door without his eyes. And out the door he went without their help. And to the last bend, as he turned the corner, his eyes were just staring at me. Yeah, to the last bended, their light was on me. And Polonius says, oh my gosh, we need to go tell the king what's happened, what's really going on. This is the very ecstasy, madness of love. So then he says, did you talk to him? And Ophelia says, of course not, father. You demanded that I not talk to him, that I don't make time for him. So I followed your advice, father. Don't worry.
That has made him mad. I am sorry that with better heed and judgment I had not quoted him. I feared he did but trifle and meant to wreck thee, but beshrew my jealousy. It seems it is as proper to our age to cast beyond ourselves in our opinions as it is common for the younger sort to lack discretion.
Okay, so Polonius here has a not very common moment of apology, kinda. He says, oh my gosh, the fact that you have not given him any of your attention is driving him crazy. He says, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't believe that his feelings were honest. And he says, it's kind of in our older natures to distrust the youth as much as it is in the nature of youth to act without discretion, to act wildly.
Come, go into the king. This must be known, which being kept close might move more grief to hide than hate to utter love. Come.
Okay, so he says, we must report this to the king. To keep this secret might cause more harm than not. Yeah, sure, the king might be angry, but he can't take the chance of something more serious happening. So yeah, so it could cause more harm, but he's not willing to take the risk of keeping it a secret. All right, so let's keep going here. Act 2, Scene 2. In this scene, we see that it is 2 months later. 2 months have passed. Two old friends of Hamlet's, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, arrive at the court and agree to spy on Hamlet for Claudius and Gertrude. More spying here. Yeah, the whole idea of spying on your friend brings some moral issues into it, right? Like, would you spy on your friend? Anyways, Polonius enters and announces the return of the two ambassadors sent to Norway. He reports that the military threat from Norway has thankfully been resolved. He also tells Claudius and Gertrude that Hamlet's rejected love for Ophelia is the cause of Hamlet's apparent madness. And he offers to arrange an accidental meeting between Hamlet and Ophelia so that he and Claudius can spy on their conversation and thereby prove what's really going on. Hamlet enters reading a book. Just at that very moment, Polonius makes conversation with him, and Hamlet replies quite irrationally. But Polonius recognizes that there is some truth to what he's saying, some truth buried in Hamlet's mad words. Hamlet then greets Rosencrantz and Guildenstern warmly, but he soon realizes that they are on a spying mission. So again, he wants so badly to trust somebody, but realizes that he cannot. In addition to that, he's going to deal with some betrayal about his friends. When he tells them how depressed he is, then they try to cheer him up with news about some traveling actors visiting the court. Hamlet greets the players warmly, the actors, and asks the lead actor to insert an extra few lines into the play called The Murder of Gonzago to be performed before the king the next night. In a soliloquy, Hamlet chastises himself strongly for procrastinating in regard to his father's murder. No longer certain that the ghost was sincere, he decides to test Claudius's guilt by watching his reaction to a play in which old King Hamlet's murder will be reenacted. So yeah, at the end of Act 2, Scene 2, we see that Hamlet's quite upset with himself for his own inaction. But then he justifies it and says, well, I can't go about killing people without knowing for sure. So he says, I have some strategy here. I'm going to ask these actors to put on a play, and in the play, they will reenact the murder of my father. If I see my uncle reacting surprisingly, then I know that he is guilty. And then he says, once I know that he is guilty for sure, then I'll act. All right, let's keep going. Actually, before we get going here, a couple of things that I do want to just explain to you. There is just a few things. He's going to ask one of the actors, the lead actor, to firstly grace us, give us a little taste of your acting ability. We've heard many, many things about your acting ability. Please just give us a little taste, grace us with it. And so Hamlet is going to suggest that he perform a speech from a play about the fall of Troy. Now, Troy was an ancient city that was sacked by the Greeks, and how they did this is they built a big, huge Trojan war horse, like a big, huge model of a horse with wood, and they presented it to the Trojans through the gates to the city, and as a gift, a peace offering gift, kind of. And the Trojans accepted it, and what ended up happening in the middle of the night is there were soldiers and people in the army that were hidden inside of this Trojan horse. They then escaped the horse and sacked the city, killed the leader. So the leader's name was King Priam. So this is important that you know that Priam gets killed, and that Pyrrhus, son of Achilles, Pyrrhus, is the person who actually kills the king, Priam. Now, Priam's wife, the king, Queen Hecuba, mourns and mourns and mourns over her dead husband. So when Hamlet asks this lead actor to perform this speech, he does have some strategy here. He wants to see how well the actor is able to show emotion and thereby kind of encourage his uncle to react. If the actor is really, really capable, making the audience feel sorrow and feel certain feelings, then he is sure that the actor will be able to get a reaction from his uncle if his uncle is guilty. All right, so let's keep going here. A room in the castle, enter the king, queen, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern, and attendants. So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are old friends of Hamlet.
Long to see you. The need.
1 second here. Old friends from his childhood. And they actually agree to spy on their friend.
So they're gonna spy.
Welcome, dear Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Moreover, that we much did long to see you. The need we had to use you did provoke our hasty sending. Something have you heard of Hamlet's transformation, so I call it, sith nor the exterior, nor the inward man resembles that it was. What should it be more than his father's death, that thus hath put him so much from the understanding of himself? I cannot deem of.
He has changed significantly, as you've probably heard. You're friends of his. I'm sure you've heard the rumors. His whole demeanor has significantly changed on the outside and on the inside. So then Claudius says, I don't know whether it's something more than his father's death. What else could it be? I'd like you to keep your eye on him and see if there's something more going on, more that is contributing to this significant change in his personality. So he says, so much from the understanding of himself that I cannot deem. He has changed so much that I can't even think why.
I entreat you both, that being of so young days brought up with him, and sith so neighboured to his youth and humour, that you vouchsafe your rest here in our court some little time.
Yeah, consent to stay here long enough to figure out what is really going on with Hamlet.
So by your companies to draw him on to pleasures, and to gather so much as from occasions you may glean, whether aught to us unknown afflicts him thus, that opened lies within our remedy.
Good.
Okay, so I need you to find out what's really going on with him, so that if something is, really going on that's mentally or physically wrong with him, so that we can try and cure it, right? So whether aught to us unknown afflicts him thus, that opened lies within our remedy. Whether what he's afflicted with, we can cure. I want you to find that out.
Gentlemen, he hath much talked of you, and sure I am two men that are not living to whom he more adheres. If it will please you to show us so much gentry and goodwill as to expend your time with us a while for the supply and profit of our hope, your visitation shall receive such thanks as fits a king's remembrance.
She says here, Hamlet talks so dearly of you. He has such good memories of you. And sure I am, two men there are not living to whom he more adheres, is more loyal to. And this is ironic, right? That Hamlet is so loyal to Guildenstern and Rosencrantz, but they are not going to return this level of loyalty. There's another added twist to this, in that the Queen says, if you are able to find out what we want you to find out, there will be a reward, a kingly reward in it for you. So they're paying them to spy on their friend.
Both your majesties might by the sovereign power you have of us put your dread pleasures more into command than to entreaty.
Okay, so Rosencrantz kind of calls it. He says, by your sovereign power, you have power over us. We don't really have a choice here, but it's my pleasure to help you out. He doesn't have a choice to say that either, because if he doesn't do this request, if they don't do the request, they are going against the king, and that could not end, very well for them, right? So then Rosencrantz says, but why us? Why not hire someone who's really experienced in this whole spying business?
We both obey, and here give up our souls in the full bent to lay our services freely at your feet, to be commanded.
Thanks, Rosencrantz and gentle Guildenstern.
Thanks, Guildenstern and gentle Rosencrantz. And I beseech you instantly to visit my too much changed son. Go, some of you, and bring these gentlemen where Hamlet is.
Heavens make our presence and our practices pleasant and helpful to him.
Aye, amen.
All right, so Guildenstern says here, like says a little prayer for success. I hope that we're able to be successful in what it is that you want us to do. But he says, make our presence and our practices. Practices here, the connotation here is of tricks, like little games that they're going to play.
The ambassadors from Norway, my good lord, are joyfully returned.
Thou still hast been the father of good news.
Have I, my lord? I assure you, my good liege, I hold my duty as I hold my soul, both to my God and to my gracious king.
Okay, so this is really interesting. Polonius says, the king says, you've been most helpful, and Polonius says, oh, have I? Well, of course I have been. I hold my duty to you as dearly as I hold my very own soul. But we already have some really good character delineation of Polonius. His soul is full of tricks. It's not open and it's not honest, right? But anyways, he announces that the two individuals that were sent to Old Fortinbras of Norway have returned. They were sent with strategy to inform the old king the plans of young Fortinbras. They were going to tell him what was going on, what the young Fortinbras was doing, and so thereby hoping to quash the intentions of young Fortinbras, right? Let's see what happened.
And I do think, or else this brain of mine hunts not the trail of policy so sure as it hath used to do, that I have found the very cause of Hamlet's lunacy.
Oh, speak of that. That do I long to hear.
Give first admittance to the ambassadors. My news shall be the fruit to that great feast.
Thyself do grace to them, and bring them in. He tells me, my sweet queen, that he hath found the head and source of all your son's distemper.
I doubt it is no other but the main. His father's death and our hasty marriage.
Well,
Okay, so she's in tune with her son. She says, you know, I doubt that it's anything more than the fact that his father has died and we have married so quickly.
well, we shall sift him.
We'll see.
Welcome, my good friends. Say, Voltimand, what from our brother Norway?
Most fair return of greetings and desires. Upon our first, he sent us to suppress his nephew's levies, which to him appeared to be a preparation against the Polack. But better looked into, he truly found it was against your highness. Whereat, grieved that so his sickness, age, and impotence was falsely borne in hand, sends out arrests on Fortinbras, which he, in brief, obeys, receives rebuke from Norway, and in fine makes vow before his uncle never more to give the assay of arms against your majesty.
All right, so this is good news. The ambassadors find out that old Fortinbras said, you know, responded with, no, I can't believe that my young nephew is planning on invading Denmark. We had a bet. It was fair and square. You know, we value or we honor our bets. But when, he says, when old Fortinbras looked into it, it was true that young Fortinbras really was planning an attack. So he sends out a command for Fortinbras, young Fortinbras, to stop his operations, and he makes young Fortinbras promise to never put forth military strength against Denmark again. So at first, though, old Fortinbras says, I thought he was putting together all of this military strength because he wanted to invade Poland. So this is interesting because a little bit later, that idea, the fact that young Fortinbras wants to invade Poland, is going to play an important role. Because the message is going to be that young Fortinbras agrees not to invade Denmark, but he has asked a request that you allow him and all of his army to pass through Denmark on their way to invading Poland. Claudius is going to agree to that. He's going to say, oh, that makes sense. So, for sure.
Whereon old Norway, overcome with joy, gives him 3,000 crowns in annual fee and his commission to employ those soldiers so levied as before against the Polack, with an entreaty herein further shown, that it might please you to give quiet pass through your dominions for his enterprise, on such regards of safety and alliance as therein are set down.
It likes us well.
That pleases me to hear this. He says, okay, so I will give young Fortinbras dominion for his enterprise. I'll give him the ability to pass through our country so that he can go through and invade Poland. So he says there are documents here that he's going to sign that allows the Norwegian army to pass through Denmark without a threat. So Claudius agrees, yes, I will sign these documents that will give young Fortinbras this, this opportunity.
And at our more considered time, we'll read, answer, and think upon this business. Meantime, we thank you for your well-took labor. Go to your rest. At night, we'll feast together. Most welcome home.
All right, so again, the king wants to party. The king really likes to party, lots. And he loves to have the cannons go off when he's drinking. We've already established his character as well, being quite arrogant. So Voltman and Cornelius exit.
This business is very well ended. My liege, and madam, to expostulate what majesty should be, what duty is, why day is day, night night, and time is time, were nothing but to waste night, day, and time. Therefore, since brevity is the soul of wit, and tediousness the limbs and outward flourishes, I will be brief.
That's kind of ironic because he's not being brief, is he?
Your noble son is mad. Mad, I call it, for to define true madness, what is't but to be nothing else but mad. But let that go.
More matter with less art.
Madam, I swear I use no art at all. That he is mad, 'tis true. 'Tis true, 'tis pity, and pity it is true.
So Gertrude says, can you get to the point already?
A foolish figure, but farewell it, for I will use no art. Mad, let us grant him then, and now remains that we find out the cause of this effect, or rather say the cause of this defect. For this effect defective comes by cause. Thus it remains, and the remainder thus. Her pen.
Get to the point already, Polonius.
I have a daughter, while she is mine, who in her duty and obedience Mark hath given me this. Now gather and surmise.
So she's given him a note that Hamlet gave to her. So again, we see that she is very much a puppet figure. He says, I own my daughter, which essentially he does, and she has given me this. I have demanded that she be open, and she is obedient to me.
To the celestial and my soul's idol, the most beautified Ophelia. That's an ill phrase, a vile phrase, beautified is a vile phrase, but you shall hear. These in her excellent white bosom.
Came this from Hamlet to her?
Good madam, stay a while, I will be faithful. Doubt thou the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never doubt I love. Oh, dear Ophelia, I am ill at these numbers, I have not art to reckon my groans, but that I love thee best, oh, most best, believe it adieu. Thine evermore, most dear lady, whilst this machine is to him, Hamlet.
Do we believe that he loves Ophelia? It looks pretty genuine to me, right? You are the stars are wonderful, and don't doubt that the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never, ever, ever, ever doubt how much I love you. These sound like pretty genuine words. The fact that Ophelia believed Hamlet loves her, that seems really reasonable, right? And as we will find out very soon, she is madly in love with him too. So it seems very clear that they are both madly in love with each other.
This in obedience hath my daughter showed me, and more above hath his solicitings, as they fell out by time, by means, and place, all given to mine ear.
But how has she received his love?
Oh, what do you think of me?
As of a man faithful and honourable.
I would fain prove so. But what might you think? When I had seen this hot love on the wing as I perceived it, I must tell you that before my daughter told me, what might you, or my dear majesty, your queen here, think if I had played the desk or table book, or given my heart a winking, mute and dumb, or looked upon this love with idle sight? What might you think?
So he answers, so the king asks, well, what did you do when you heard all of this? And Polonius says, me? Well, I would never keep this to myself, which he did. right? He's only coming forth with it now. He says, I would never keep this to myself. I would never wink at their relationship and not share it with you. But that's kind of what he did. Not that he winked at it, but he did not share it initially with the king. So he's kind of trying to cover his butt here. So he announces here, oh, my dear majesty and queen, I would never be a go-between for their love. I wouldn't support it, in other words. And I wouldn't pretend to ignore it, which is what he did.
No, I went round to work, and my young mistress thus I did bespeak. Lord Hamlet is a prince out of thy star. This must not be. And then I precepts gave her, that she should lock herself from his resort, admit no messengers, receive no tokens. Which done, she took the fruits of my advice, and he, repulsed, a short tale to make, fell into a sadness, then into a fast, thence to a watch, thence into a weakness, thence to a lightness, and by this declension into the madness wherein now he raves and all we wail for.
Do you think 'tis this?
It may be, very like.
All right, so Polonius has some ideas about why Hamlet is acting so crazily. He says, it is because I told my daughter to not give him the time of day. And the fact that she would not respond to his offers of love has sent him into madness of unrequited love, unreturned love. And then he says, I did express to my daughter that Lord Hamlet is out of your league. He is, there may be some love here, but he's out of your league. You cannot put your heart into this, my dear.
Hath there been such a time, I'd fain know that I have positively said, 'tis so when it proved otherwise?
Not that I know.
Take this from this, if this be otherwise.
So he says, look, have I ever been wrong about anything, about similar situations? He says, if I'm wrong, take this from this. Take my head from my shoulders. He is that positive that this is exactly what it is.
Circumstances lead me, I will find where truth is hid, though it were hid indeed within the centre.
How may we try it further?
Sometimes he walks 4 hours together here in the lobby.
So he does indeed.
At such a time, I loose my daughter to him. Be you and I behind an arras.
Okay, so he's got a plan here. The king says, are you sure? Are you sure? And he says, I'm absolutely sure. In fact, let's test this theory out. I will use my daughter as bait for Hamlet, and we'll arrange an accidental meeting wherein you and I will be hiding behind a piece of cloth hung on the wall, an arras, a tapestry, and we'll be able to hear everything that they talk about. More spying.
Mark the encounter. If he love her not, and be not from his reason fallen thereon, let me be no assistant for a state, but keep a farm and carters.
So he says, look, if I'm wrong, we'll be able to tell by their conversation. If he doesn't love her, it'll be obvious. If he does, then we'll know for sure. And he says, look, if I'm wrong, you can fire me and I'll happily be a farmer. Yeah, so let me no assistant for the state. You can fire me and I'll keep a farm and carts.
We will try it.
Look where sadly the poor wretch comes reading.
Away, I do beseech you. Both away. I'll board him presently. Won't give me leave.
Okay, so the king says, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's spy on him and see if that's really why he's gone crazy. Yeah, Dylan.
Did she really just call her son a poor wretch?
She did. Yeah. Yeah, so she's really upset. He looks wretched, right? So the fact that she's called him that is reasonable. Okay, enter Hamlet reading.
How does my good Lord Hamlet?
How are
Well,
you?
God of mercy.
Do you know me, my lord?
Excellent, excellent. Well, you're a fishmonger.
No, not I, my lord.
Then I would you were so honest a man.
Honest, my lord?
Aye, sir, to be honest, as this world goes, is to be one man picked out of 10,000.
Oh, that's very true, my lord.
Okay, so he, right from the get-go, he is calling Polonius some negative things, some derogatory things. Let's take a look at the annotation here. So he calls him, oh yeah, I know who you are. You're a fishmonger. A fish seller, also used to mean a pimp, somebody who is in charge of women and treating them like objects. Is it not true?
If the sun breed maggots in a dead dog, being a good kissing carrion, have you a daughter?
I have, my lord.
Let her not walk in the sun. Conception is a blessing, but not as your daughter may conceive. Friend, look to it.
How say you by that? Still harping on my daughter. Yet he knew me not at first. He said I was a fishmonger. He is far gone, far gone. And truly in my youth I suffered much extremity for love, very near this. I'll speak to him again.
Okay, so Hamlet says, I do know you. Don't you have a daughter? Hamlet's well aware of who he is. He's in love with his daughter. So he says, let her not walk in the sun. Let's take a look at the annotation here. The sun is associated with royalty. Therefore, Hamlet is warning Polonius to keep Ophelia out of the dangerous presence of either himself or the king. But he is definitely talking in riddles here.
What do you read, my lord?
Words, words, words.
What is the matter, my lord?
Between who?
No, I mean the matter that you read, my lord.
Slanders, sir. For the satirical slave says here that old men have grey beards, that their faces are wrinkled, their eyes purging thick amber or plum tree gum, and that they have a plentiful lack of wit.
Oh, he's attacking Polonius yet again, inadvertently, right? So Polonius says, what are you reading? He says, oh, I'm just reading words. Well, what do you think I'm reading? They're words. And he says, no, I mean, like, what are you reading about? And he says, I'm reading slander. The talk about how old men have, gray beards and their gums are, they have no teeth, and how they have a plentiful lack of wit. They're not smart.
Together with weak hams. All which, sir, though I most powerfully and potently believe, yet I hold it not honesty to have it thus set down. For yourself, sir, should be as old as I am, if like a crab you could go backward.
Though this be madness, yet there is method in it. Will you walk out of the air, my lord?
Into my grave?
Indeed, that is out of the air. How pregnant sometimes his replies are. A happiness that often madness hits on, which reason and sanity could not so prosperously be delivered of.
Okay, so he's taking mental note here. See, he says, he's talking in riddles, but there is some truth coming through in what he's saying. And he says that's often what happens when you go crazy, though. And he says how pregnant sometimes his replies are, how full of meaning his replies are. The other thing is it's showing that he has a preoccupation with death. Right? So he says, his reply here, into my grave. Now, this preoccupation with death is an important thing to note because a little bit later on, we're going to talk about what an existential crisis is. And we'll discuss whether we think Hamlet is having an existential crisis. And thoughts about death, preoccupation with death, is part of that.
I will leave him and suddenly contrive the means of meeting between him and my daughter. My honourable lord, I will most humbly take my leave of you.
You cannot, sir, take from me anything that I will more willingly part with all, except my life. Except my life.
Oh, fare you well, my lord.
These tedious old fools.
So again, repetition. He's got a preoccupation with death and whether he should live. He's clearly depressed.
You go to seek my lord, Hamlet. There he is.
God save you, sir.
My honoured lord.
My most dear lord.
My excellent good friends. How dost thou, Guildenstern? Our Rosencrantz. Good lads, how do ye both?
As the indifferent children of the earth.
Happy, in that we are not over happy. On fortune's cap, we are not the very button.
No.
Okay, so Hamlet, again, we see him perk up right here with his friends until, of course, he figures out that they've been sent by the king and queen to spy on him. So again, we see little glimpses of old Hamlet and how he used to be kind of perky and positive, right? So Hamlet says, oh, how are you guys doing? And they said, oh, we're doing as well as common folk can do. And he says, fortune has been, pretty good to us. We're not at the very bottom, but things are pretty good.
The soles of her shoe?
Neither, my lord.
Then you either about her waist or in the middle of her favours.
Faith, her privates, we.
In the secret parts of fortune. Oh, most true, she is a strumpet.
Okay, so here is some sexual innuendo. We know that Shakespeare used body humor, right? B-A-W-D-Y, body humor with sexual innuendo to keep people engaged. Does that work? It still works today, right? So he's saying here, so how are you doing? And they're like, oh, we're as good as common people can do. Fortune has been, pretty good to us. We're not like living on the bottom of Fortune's souls, right? We're not at the very bottom of things. And Hamlet says, oh, well then where are you? Are you like in the middle, in the waist area? And Gildernew says, oh, well, we're actually near her privates. And then Hamlet thinks this is quite funny in the secret parts of Fortune. So Fortune was often referred to as being a female, kind of a goddess, the goddess of Fortune. Almost true, she is a strumpet. Fortune is a strumpet because she cannot be relied upon for continued favors, meaning she changes her mind all the time.
What's the news?
And now, my lord, that the world's grown honest.
Then is doomsday near. But your news is not true. Let me question more in particular. What have you, my good friends, deserved at the hands of Fortune that she sends you to prison hither?
Prison, my lord?
Denmark's a prison.
So again, preoccupation with death, in that he says, this is doomsday is near. And again, this preoccupation that he is trapped in this state of Denmark. Trapped. And in so many ways, he is trapped. He has promised to avenge his father, and in so doing, he has trapped himself into, behavior, being a murderer.
Then is the world one.
A goodly one, in which there are many confines, wards, and dungeons, Denmark being one of the worst.
We think not so, my lord.
Why then 'tis known to you, for as nothing either good or bad but thinking makes it so. To me it is a prison.
Why then your ambition makes it one. 'Tis too narrow for your mind.
Oh God, I could be bounded in a nutshell, and count myself a king of infinite space, were it not that I have bad dreams.
Which dreams indeed are ambition, for the very substance of the ambitious is merely the shadow of a dream.
A dream itself is but a shadow.
Truly, and I hold ambition of so airy and light a quality that it is but a shadow's shadow.
Then are our beggars bodies, and our monarchs and outstretched heroes the beggars' shadows. Shall we to the court? For by my fay, I cannot reason.
We'll wait upon you.
Okay, so they're trying to prod him for some information. Like, so what's going on with you? What are you, what's going on in your near future? What are your ambitions? And Hamlet is just saying, not really great ambitions, because Denmark is a prison and I'm stuck here.
No such matter. I will not sort you with the rest of my servants. For to speak to you like an honest man, I am most dreadfully attended. But in the beaten way of friendship, what make you at Elsinore?
To visit you, my lord, no other occasion.
Beggar that I am even poor in thanks. But I thank you. And sure, dear friends, my thanks are too dear a halfpenny. Were you not sent for?
Right to the point.
Is it your own inclining? Is it a free visitation? Come, deal justly with me. Come, they speak.
What should we say, my lord?
By anything but to the purpose. You were sent for. And there is a kind of confession in your looks which your modesties have not craft enough to colour. I know the good king and queen have sent for you.
To what end, my lord?
That you must teach me. But let me conjure you. By the rights of our fellowship, by the consonancy of our youth, by the obligation of our ever-preserved love, and by what more dear a better proposer could charge you withal, be even and direct with me whether you were sent for or no.
Okay, so he's calling them on it. Were you sent for or not? I think you were. I believe that you were. And so please, because we have a love that we shared as friends, tell me the truth. Please do not betray me.
What say you?
Nay, then I have an eye of you. If you love me, hold not off.
My lord, we were sent for.
I'll tell you why. So shall my anticipation prevent your discovery, and your secrecy to the king and queen mold no feather.
Okay, so Guildenstern comes clean. He says, yes. Yes, we were sent for. And Hamlet says, all right, I'll tell you why you have been sent here. You've been sent here to spy on me. And I'm going to tell you why you were sent here so that you are not in danger of betraying the king and telling me. So he says, I believe that you were sent here to spy on me. I will tell you why. So shall my anticipation prevent your discovery, and your secrecy to the king and queen remain whole. So you're not betraying the king and queen. If they betray the king and queen, they could put themselves in danger, right, as traitors. So Hamlet gives them an out by guessing.
I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercise. And indeed, it goes so heavily with my disposition that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave, o'erhanging firmament, this majestical roof, fretted with golden fire, why, it appears no other thing to me than a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors.
Okay, so he's coming clean. He says, yes, I get it. You were sent for me. They're worried about me. And it's true. As of late, I am not a happy person. I'm quite depressed. The way that I look at the world is very negatively. I feel like there are black clouds over me, foul and pestilent congregation of vapors, black clouds. And then he's going to go on to contemplate the meaning of life and why is man even on the earth? And again, I want you to take note of this because, as I said, we're going to talk about existential crisis a little bit later on.
What a piece of work is man. How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable. In action, how like an angel. In apprehension, how like a god.
So again, we can see remnants here of chain of being, right? Man is kind of like an angel, in some ways like a god. So those links of the chain of being is what he's referring to.
The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. And yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights not me. No, no woman neither, though by your smiling you seem to say so.
My lord, there was no such stuff in my thoughts.
Why did you laugh then when I said man delights not me?
Okay, so he says I'm not impressed with human beings in general. Men don't, being a man doesn't impress me. Neither does, women. Women don't impress me either. And Rosencrantz finds this quite funny because that's not the old Hamlet. The old Hamlet certainly was very interested in life and women, I'm sure.
To think, my lord, if you delight not in man, what Lenten entertainment the players shall receive from you. We quoted them on the way, and hither are they coming to offer you service.
Okay, so Rosencrantz changes the subject here. He says, if you don't delight in human beings, then I suppose you won't be excited to hear that we encountered some actors that were on their way to the palace. Actually, this is going to excite Hamlet. So we passed some players, some actors along the way. They're on their way here. They are going to offer you their service. They're going to ask you, do you want to see a play? Can we offer some of our services to you as the king, as the prince?
At plays the king shall be welcome. His Majesty shall have tribute of me. The adventurous knight shall use his foil and target. The lover shall not sigh greatest. The humorous man shall end his part in peace. The clown shall make those laugh whose lungs are tickle of the seer. And the lady shall say her mind freely, or the blank verse shall halt for it. What players are they?
Even those you were wont to take delight in, the tragedians of the city.
How chances it they travel? Their residence, both in reputation and profit, was better both ways.
I think their inhibition comes by the means of the late innovation.
Do they hold the same estimation they did when I was in the city? Are they so followed?
No, indeed, they are not.
All right, so Hamlet is saying, oh, you know what? I do invite them. He that plays the king shall be welcome. Already, he's got a little plan going in his mind. He's going to ask the players to, one of them in particular, to pretend to be the king, to play the role of the king. So he's got some strategy here. And so he's asking, oh, what company is it that's coming? And Rosencrantz says, oh, you are familiar with them. They are the tragedians of the city. They perform tragedies. And this is going to work with Hamlet for sure. And so Hamlet's saying, well, why are they traveling? Like, why are they not at their home base back in the city? And Rosencrantz is going to say, oh no, things have changed because of the innovation. The latest innovation is child actors. So the latest challenge for these tragedians is that they are up against child actors that have wowed the city, right? The fact that children can get up and perform so wonderfully, even better than adults, has kind of put them out of business. So that's why they've left the city and they're traveling. They're trying to, get some work elsewhere. And so Hamlet says, oh, okay, I get it.
How comes it? Do they grow rusty?
Nay, their endeavour keeps in the wonted pace, but there is an array of children, little eye-asses that cry out on the top of question and are most tyrannically clapped for it. These are now the fashion, and so berattle the common stages, so they call them, that many wearing rapiers are afraid of goose quills and dare scarce come thither.
What are they, children? Who maintains them? How are they escorted? Will they pursue the quality no longer than they can sing? Will they not say afterwards, if they should grow themselves to common players, as it's most like, if their means are no better, their writers do them wrong, to make them exclaim against their own succession?
Faith has been much to do on both sides, and the nation holds it no sin to tar them to controversy. There was for a while no money bid for argument unless the poet and the player went to cuffs in the question.
All right, so Hamlet's trying to figure it out. Like, so why are they traveling again? Are they rusty? Are they not very good anymore? And Rosencrantz says, no, they're still really good. It's just everybody now wants to see these child actors. They're all the rage. They're the only thing that's really in fashion right now. So Hamlet suggests, well, if they're children, who's watching over them? And will they not one day grow into adult actors? And then what will happen then? Because often these child actors will berate the common actor, that they are so much better. And so Hamlet here is, focused on the fact that one day these children will grow up and be adults and then will put themselves kind of out of work, basically.
Possible. Oh, there has been much throwing about of brains.
Do the boys carry it away?
Aye, that they do, my lord. Hercules and his load too.
It is not strange. For mine uncle is king of Denmark, and those that would make mouths at him while my father lived give 20, 40, 100 ducats apiece for his picture in little. Blood, there's something in this more than natural, if philosophy could find it out.
All right, so Hamlet is saying, do the young boys carry the productions? It is well known that the young boys would play the parts of women because their voices hadn't cracked. And so Rosencrantz says, yeah, they do. And then he makes this comment, Hercules and his load too. So let's take a look at the annotation here, 361 to 366. Hamlet compares the 359 to 360. Hercules and his load. Now, Hercules carrying the earth was a sign of the Globe Theater. So the sign of the Globe Theater showed Hercules carrying the globe. Hence, it seems that even Shakespeare's theater suffered from the popularity of these child actors. So it's interesting that he included reference to his own acting company in the play.
There are the players.
Oh, here they are. They've come.
You are welcome to Elsinore. Your hands come.
The appurtenance of welcome is fashion and ceremony. Let me comply with you in the garb, lest my extent to the players, which I tell you must show fairly outwards, should more appear like entertainment than yours. You are welcome. But my uncle, father, and aunt mother are deceived.
In what, my dear lord?
I am but mad north-northwest. When the wind is southerly, I know a hawk from a handsaw.
Well, be with you, gentlemen.
Hark you, Guildenstern, and you too, at each ear a hearer. That great baby you see there is not yet out of his swaddling clouts.
Happily is the second time come to them, for they say an old man is twice a child.
My lord.
I will prophesy he comes to tell of the players' market.
You say right, sir. On Monday morning, 'twas so indeed.
My lord, I have news to tell you.
My lord, I have news to tell you.
When Roscius was an actor in Rome,
The actors are come hither, my lord.
But,
Upon my honour,
then came each actor on his ass.
the best actors in the world, either for tragedy, comedy, history, pastoral, comical, historical, pastoral, tragical, historical, tragical, comical, historical, pastoral, scene individable, or poem unlimited. Seneca cannot be too heavy, nor Plautus too light. For the law of writ and the liberty, these are the only men.
Okay, so Hamlet says, "Oh yeah, here come the players," and then here comes Polonius, and Hamlet says to Guildenstern and Rosencrantz, "Okay, mark my words, Polonius is here to tell me that the actors have arrived when it's pretty obvious that they have." So essentially, Hamlet is calling Polonius Captain Obvious. So he says, watch, that's what he'll say. And then, of course, Polonius does. He announces, "The actors have come hither, my lord." And Hamlet says, "See, I told you, Captain Obvious." So he's enjoying kind of making fun of Polonius here. So Polonius then says, "These are the best actors. They can play any genre at all." And then he goes on and on and on. Hamlet is going to say something really negatively to him. He's going to call him, let's take a look at the annotation here, line 400. This person, Jephthah, is a character in the Bible who sacrificed his daughter to fulfill an oath. So the fact that Hamlet is going to call Polonius this name has undertones to it, right? He is saying something very negative about Polonius, that he is not watching out for the best interest of his daughter, right?
Oh, Jephthah, judge of Israel, what a treasure hadst thou.
What a treasure had he.
My one fair daughter, and no more, the which he loved passing well.
Still on my daughter.
Am I not in the right, O Jephthah?
If you call me Jephthah, my lord, I have a daughter that I love passing well.
Nay, that follows not.
What follows then, my lord?
Right, as by lot God was. And then, it came to pass as most like it was. The first row of the pious chanson I'll show you more of. For look where my abridgments come.
All right, we'll leave off there, and we'll finish this off tomorrow, and then I'll give you the rest of the period to complete the analysis questions. We'll also take a look at the quiz tomorrow, the chain of being quiz. So please make sure that you do have that finished as well. If we have some time, we'll take a look at, we'll do a little introduction to existential crisis and what that is.